Welcome to 1,001 Ways to Cope with Stress. I am Professor Kinshasha Shabaka, and as you know, this is a show that has run for 19 years, and we've always had subject matter that relates to stress, either eustress, meaning handling stress well, or distress, handling stress not so well. And we have had a very large variety and a diversity of topics. Today we have a very unusual topic, but very timely for the days and the weeks and the months and the years that we are now in. We are delighted to have with us today Leslie Stone, known as the Queen of Cannabis. Welcome, Leslie.
Well, hello. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and we are ready to hear all there is to hear about cannabis.
But there is so much to
I'm
talk
sure.
about. I'm sure you guys all know that this is the new hottest trending subject matter. It's the new industry. It's the new multi-billion-dollar wealth generator. So it is the thing of the now.
I can see that, yes. Right. All that I've been hearing and researching recently, I know that it is quite diverse, not only in terms of the offerings from medical marijuana and of course, the social, which has always been the one that so many people have gotten in trouble for. So I want you to make a distinction for us between the medical marijuana and also the, I guess they call it recreational. Yes, adult use marijuana. Could you make that distinction for us?
Well, everyone knows what recreational marijuana is. Recreational is weed, pot, ganja, herb, whatever the terminology you refer to it as. And it's what we know to get high. It's the party drug. It's been this drug for years that made us laugh, feel good, and get with people, eat food. So everyone knows weed. Everyone knows pot. But not many of us, and very few of us, know cannabis as a medicine. So what has actually happened is really revolutionary, because this information has always existed, but it was suppressed for many, many years.
And why?
Another big question. That's one of the reasons why the legalization has been is going quickly, but at the same time it's not as fast as it could happen because of the fact that it has been legal, illegal for so many years. And the reason why is because it has affected so many people of color and minorities and people in the underserved communities. It decimated them. That was what the war on drugs was. It was a decimation of the people of color in all of the underserved communities. So these individuals have faced jail time. They've been evicted from their homes. They've lost their jobs. They've been
lost their families, lost their lives.
For the rest of their life, with this stigma attached to them as a criminal, or drug user, or a drug offender. Their home structure has broken, family structure broken and dismantled. So it has caused so much harm in the communities of color and with low-income individuals nationwide that although we talk tremendously about legalization, but the real question, the why, is all about decriminalization. Now, why isn't it legal everywhere? Well, we're sitting here in New York State. New York State is a state that has the most individuals incarcerated in the United States of America for marijuana. I believe the number was over 800,000 arrests. So now New York State is a legal place for medicinal marijuana. So how does that impact those that are criminalized, those that have been ostracized from society because of their
association with it,
misbehavior at the time?
Yeah. So what does happen to them?
Well, that's one of the reasons why New York State has not moved forward on pushing recreational use. Before we can pass that law, we must really pay retribution and reparations to the people that have been decimated the most by war on drugs. So Governor Cuomo was really pushing for the legalization of medical marijuana. I mean, not the legalization of medical, but the legalization of recreational marijuana. That has been heavily in the news, and they was really trying to make it happen between April and June. However, it will not occur in New York State until they address that issue of making sure that the communities and the people that have been decimated can play a part of this industry. So we're talking about places, Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem. I mean, Harlem, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Harlem was once labeled Convict Alley. They have a zoned area in Harlem that it's a fact in the books, you know, here in New York State, that this region in Harlem had the most black males incarcerated in, like, I think it was a 50-mile radius. Or actually, I believe in New York State, if I'm not mistaken. And it's called Convict Alley. And these were black males from the ages of 16 to 25.
Prime years of development, prime years
Of course.
of...
So you have many of these children still suffering from those actions that that happened in their past when they were juveniles. They were juvenile offenders, youth offenders, and now it has created the revolving door, and it's prevented them from becoming, you know, productive citizens in society because of the stigma that's been associated with it. So before we can move forward with any more legalization here in New York State, and we're talking about adult use, we must include diversity, inclusion, and also what's known as equity. Equity is a way for the state and the government to pay it forward to these individuals in these communities that have suffered the most. And this is part of the restorative justice that they're discussing right now in New York State with the legislators. So this is one of the biggest arguments or the biggest concerns. In the states that have legalized it for adult use, California, for example, they have an equity program. However, because like anything else, when it's done for the very first time, it's normally not so good. You know, anything done the first time, it's not so great. You know why? Because it's the first time. People are going to tell you what was wrong, it wasn't done quite as good, everyone's not going to be pleased with it. So it's good to get that feedback. And normally the second time around is better than the first. So with that being said, New York is in a position to really create the framework for the people in the communities that have been decimated the most by war on drugs, because we are the state that has the most people incarcerated.
Now, what will they do with those persons? In other words, if the law essentially not is rescinded, because it was the law at that time, but if they're pulling back on that, do those people get, you know, released from prison? Do they get programs that will help them to rehabilitate and to work in the society? I mean, what will happen to them?
Well,
I mean, are their sentences going to be forever? I mean, how do they handle that? Do you know what's being discussed?
Well, yeah, there's quite a few things being discussed. There's quite a few things on the table. I believe they pretty much have defined that framework. They just haven't released that information to the public as of yet, because they've been doing a lot of deep dive examination and research, and really lending to the states that have done it, looking at the gaps, and really want to drill down on the things that was not addressed in the other states for the people of color in these communities. So one of the biggest things, of course, is to have expungement, okay? We want to ensure that all people and every individual that was incarcerated for marijuana, that their
Have those sentences and their records expunged. Yes, I understand. Right.
Another thing, one of the greatest problems for people of color, of course, we want to make sure that we can play a part of the industry. So in order for us to play a part of the industry, we normally need some money, because we normally don't have capital. So part of this equity program is to also ensure that people of color in these communities have the capital that's needed, like the seed capital for startup companies. We're looking at taking some of the money from the actual sales and the taxes of marijuana and using that money to give back to these communities to ensure that they can have a part of this business as well. In addition to that, we're looking at zoning in these communities, whereas we want to ensure that the people that live within the communities are the kind of one of the first to have the opportunities to create some of the brick and mortars and the different type of businesses to operate. So we want to create this zoning, whereas within a certain zone, there should be a certain amount of businesses established.
Available. Yes, that sounds good.
Yes. Then also, like I said, of course, making sure that there is some capital access, because once again, one of the biggest challenges for people of color is to have capital, or for any small business or startup company is to have capital to operate. So we want to ensure that there's funding available. In addition to that, also providing training and education, because what is most important about this industry at this time right now is really the education component of it. Because once again, this is something that was known as the illegal drug. This is something that has been told to many that it causes all these untrue reactions
and effects on your body and on your mind,
body and behaviors. So there's a lot of deprogramming that we must do to society to allow them to really accept the benefits of the plant. So,
and to rectify some of the dangers that it created. Yes.
Yes, because right now it's like before the last year or so, you really didn't hear anything positive about cannabis. You didn't see cannabis commercials. People wasn't having open discussions about cannabis as a medicine. If you were talking about it, you was like, talking about getting the bag, get the joint, pass me something. It was not in a positive nor constructive manner. It was always a party drug, and then they turned the party drug into something more evil and portrayed it to be something worse than
almost clandestine.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, now that we know better, so to speak, of what cannabis can do, let's talk about the positives. Let us know something about in what way it can positively affect behavior, affect the health of human beings, and affect essentially their more tolerable existence.
Well, first of all, everything that we need, we were given from the beginning of time. Okay? Let's just kind of go step back into history before we get to where we are now with commercialization, modernization. So from the beginning of time, historically, we were given everything we needed. Like if you think back in history before we had cars and television and computers and compasses, we had nature. We had what I call the elements of the earth. The sun, the moon, the stars, plant, trees. So these are all
natural help
that was given to us by the higher spirit naturally. So what I'm saying is that as human beings, we have everything surrounding us to keep us in a great state of being naturally. Society, propaganda, and media has conditioned us to believe that we need all these artificial, commercialized things to survive and to have a certain quality of life. But if we go back to the basics of life, the basic of life is really about living, breathing, eating, sleeping, keeping good health. Like you say, health and wellness. So cannabis is natural. This is what most people have forgotten. And the reason we've forgotten is because they programmed us to forget it. That cannabis is a plant. It's just a plant. Now, anyone who's into, farming or plant-based diets, vegans, vegetarians, you will know that there are tons of plants out here that we can eat. There's a plethora of plants that grow daily that you can eat. Not just plants. I mean, there's flowers. There's different natural things that we can eat. But a lot of people are just not privy to it just because we conform to what we're taught based on television and from our traditions within our family. So if you really look at natural things, plants, these plants are natural. Now, the thing about this plant and the cannabis plant, there are some differences, but there's a lot of commonalities. Now, the same thing about plants in the human body. Although humans are different from plants, there's a certain commonality in our body composition, the same as plants, because we need the same thing plants need to survive from the elements of the earth, sun, water. So we're different species, but we still need a lot of the same types of things to survive. So with that being said, plant-based foods are so good for us. And most people, when we start thinking about dieting and we're going to go on our health and wellness, the first thing we start doing is eating salads, right? Oh, everyone knows a nice, healthy salad. Now, why a salad? It's all plant-based. It's all natural. No preservatives, no additives, no fat. It has everything you need, all the right nutrients, all your vitamins, C, D, just a lot of things that we need to survive. Now, just like the plants, if they have the natural elements, they grow healthy and they continue to grow and they survive. Humans, we're the same. As long as we provide ourselves with the natural things and take good care of our bodies, we grow older and we survive. Now, depending on how well we take care of ourselves, determine how well we grow as we grow older. So, just like with the plants, if you take a beautiful plant that's grown for years out of the sun and put it in the dark, it withers and dries and dies. It must have that sun to continue to grow. Our human anatomy has things that it must have to continue to grow. And a lot of these things are commonalities within plants and humans. And one of the things is called cannabinoids. So plants have cannabinoids and humans have cannabinoids. So what is really taking the world by storm is that they released the scientific information that cannabis consists of a compound called cannabinoids. And cannabinoids interact with our bodies naturally to help prevent and alleviate tremendous amounts of health afflictions naturally with no side effects. So this is what all the talk about is. When we're talking about cannabis as a medicine, we're really talking about CBD, which is known as cannabinoids. So cannabinoids actually sticks to our receptors in our body. Now, we have a system in our body called the endocannabinoid system. So our human anatomy creates cannabinoids. And that's why CBD is so miraculous for our healing process. And now it's becoming like the new mainstream miraculous ailment for palliative care because it's natural and it can help to eliminate so many side effects. And now what does that do? Now we moving into entrenching into the markets like opioids. We're talking about things that are bad for you. Alcohol. We're able to replace cigarettes. We're able to replace all of these mainstream unhealthy products with one plant. But this plant has many forms of consumption to it as well. So this is what all the talk is about. CBD and cannabinoids.
So it can be put in foods. It can be used in a variety of ways. right? And so the idea is to re-educate people so that they know the advantages and the positive elements of cannabinoids or cannabis,
Yes.
and to deflect attention away from all the negative in the way it has been portrayed heretofore. Now, we have a thing called endorphins in our body, which are naturally elicited by joy and happiness and saying good things to yourself and saying good things to others. Now, this seems to be something that people who feel that you have this happy, natural, the natural high. So how can you describe the difference between that and the cannabis?
Well, great question, by the way. The difference in the cannabis, well, let's just talk about the natural high. A natural high, let's just say you're on your own natural high without using any type of drugs or anything to enhance you naturally. Some people just very upbeat and very energetic and just they're just happy all the time. Okay, so that person is considered on a natural high, right? That type of person who's like every day you see them, they're like happy, they're giddy, they're just full of energy, they're full of life.
I know that person very well.
Most people, when you see that person,
Yes, right.
it's like this person's on a natural
Right,
high.
right.
Now, cannabis has what's known as the euphoric effect that gives you that natural high sensation. Because now it's not a natural high because you use something to create it. So it's a natural high sensation because we can create our own natural highs. And it's that same feeling. It's that same feeling of giddiness. It's that same feeling of being uplifted. It's that same feeling of happiness. And it's a feeling of energy that you really like to share too. It's something that, as they call it when you get high most time, you want to be around friends and it's cool vibes. The vibes are always cool because your energy level's up. And you're very positive, you're upbeat, you're excited, you're energetic. And cannabis does it for you. There's a strain that's called sativa. So most people that want to have that natural high that can't, generate it themselves, then you can use sativa.
Now, you say a very important point there. I'm one who can generate it for myself. So people say, what do you want?
Exactly.
But the point that I make here is, what is it that we can do? Because part of my work is facilitating people creating their own natural high. The good feeling about yourself, your good feeling about the world, the good feeling about, nature. And there are so many things in nature that propel that natural high, that create and sustain that natural high, that my thing has always been, who needs to pay for it? You can just get it by going to the ocean, by going to the woods, by hugging a tree, by hugging a loved one, by being in touch with your reality and making your reality as happy a one as possible. So sort of help me understand, are there certain people, or are most people unable to create that natural high, or is it an effort to increase it, or what is what would be the reason that a person would seek cannabis as opposed to seeking that interior ability to create it?
Well, I think that really is a bullseye to your show. Stress and anxiety. Everyone of us at some point in our lives deal with some type of stress. Some of us and many of us suffer from anxiety. Many of us suffer from mood modulations, mood swings. When I say mood modulations, that means a mood swing, ups and downs, highs and lows. There are people that deal with depressions, bipolar. So now we're talking about all these different type of mood behaviors, okay? So cannabis, whether you believe it or not, because I, like yourself, am a person who's normally on a natural high. Anyone that knows me can tell you, like, Leslie's always happy, she's giddy. So I'm one of these type of people that exude that natural high. But there's a huge group of people that don't have that natural high. They're not capable of creating it within themselves. And these are people that are depressed. Now we're going into mental illness. These are people who have
emotional
depressions.
issues.
They have emotional roller coaster rides in their daily behaviors. You know, they have mood swings. So when you're looking at those types of afflictions and those individuals, they need something to help balance them out. And I call it, they need something to help take that edge off. So cannabis really alleviates that whole influx mood swings, and it just kind of puts you in a very calm state. You know, there's a lot of times when I've spoken to a lot of people throughout my travels who express anger management. Like they said, they take cannabis to manage their anger. A lot of people, especially young men, young black men from like, say, 18 to 30 or 25, a lot of those guys, when you ask them why they're smoking outside of the whole social aspect of it, they tell you because it keeps them calm.
Okay, now, it keeps them calm. Does it promote their achievement? Does it promote their ability to do their job well? Does it promote their ability to have relationships in a very positive, sharing way? Those are questions that I know that we will want to get into in part 2.
Well,
And, yeah, go ahead.
those are good questions to ask, but see, now that goes back to stigma. That goes back to misinformation. That goes back to reefer madness. See, reefer madness created this whole taboo of negative conceptions of what cannabis does to you and the effects that it has on us.
I thank you so much, Leslie. And we thank you for watching 1,001 Ways to Cope with Stress. Stay tuned for part 2.